All right. So as you can see, we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. We've got Twilio, Unilever, Medallia, so many amazing companies joining the Netlify Jamstack space. We've got 2 million developers. Feels like just a year ago we were talking about having 1 million developers. So unbelievable to see the growth in this space. Super exciting. I can't wait to see how it continues to grow. So with that being said, let's just keep this on rolling. We are going to talk about operating Jamstack apps at business scale. And to do that, we're going to do this as a fireside chat. We're going to bring in Nelson Diallo, who is one of our account managers here at Netlify, and he's going to be talking about Nael Kahn, who's a front end manager at Gemini. And they're going to be just discussing how do you run a Jamstack app at business scale. So let's please welcome them to the stage.
Perfect. Thanks for that introduction, Jason. Thanks to everyone for joining and for sticking with us for this kind of the last part of today, the fireside chat. My name is, of course, Nelson Diallo. I'm representing Netlify here. Did want to have our guest, Niall, introduce himself as well. Before jumping into a few planned questions, this is, of course, a interactive session as well. So audience, please feel free to drop any questions you have for Niall into the Q&A, and we'll get those answered at the end. Niall, can you kick us off with an intro?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nelson. Thanks for the Netlify team for arranging this. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Niall. Pleasure to meet you, everybody, on the call and then the event. I'm an engineering manager at Gemini, your favorite cryptocurrency exchange. I'm managing the team that currently works on Gemini.com, the public marketing site, which is our first entry to most of the products that we offer, as well as the blog and Cryptopedia, which are great resources for all things crypto.
Awesome. Niall, thanks for the context. And I'm sure the audience would love to learn a little bit more about kind of the web projects you're working on today and some of the technologies that power them. Can you share a little bit more detail there?
For sure, yeah. So we actually have two web projects that I'd like to talk about. I'm going to focus on Gemini.com, which is our public marketing site, but I really want to mention Nifty Gateway, which is also hosted on Netlify. Nifty Gateway is a platform that's independent to Gemini, but part of our suite of products. And it's basically a trading platform for Nifties or NFTs, where you can browse and collect NFT tokens. So I'd encourage everybody to check that out, niftygateway.com. And we just recently worked on a brand new redesign and really want to highlight that for the team. And I think that's a great React app that's being hosted on Netlify. That being said, Gemini.com is what I want to focus on today. That's kind of like the bread and butter of what I'm working on at Gemini. And Gemini.com is a Next.js app that's running on Netlify. So we're still taking advantage of that hybrid static and server-side rendering that Next.js offers us, and we're also utilizing TypeScript to help us with like the code resilience and really scaling as we onboard more engineers, front end engineers, and other engineers as well. And we also have an integration that we kind of rely on with Contentful, which is a platform that we use for some of our copy updates and text content that show up on Gemini.com for some of our product pages. But yeah.
Awesome. And so good to hear about a Netlify technology partner, Contentful, being used at Gemini as well. So, we've seen crypto really boom over the past, it seems like few years. And it seems like everyone has kind of gotten on board and really gotten interested in what you're doing at Gemini. So, how does that translate to some of your web projects? And maybe how does that tie to some of the growth initiatives you're working on?
Yeah, so in this industry, growth is everything, and cryptocurrencies have been booming over like the last year. So our business, grateful to say that it has been booming as well. So with that comes a lot of technical challenges. We've actually had the most requests and the most traffic that we've ever seen on Gemini.com with the recent crypto boom over the last year. So with that comes a lot of traffic that we're obviously have to scale to deliver our pages in real time and always up to date. Netlify is really helping with that in terms of our internationalization, and the global CDN that Netlify offers us allows us to capitalize on really delivering pages as fast as possible to users across the globe. we're using Next.js, as I mentioned earlier, and that's letting us capitalize on some of the SEO benefits that comes with Next.js. So, all of our pages are really pre-rendered or server-side generated, and that allows us to really capitalize on getting easily crawlable pages that can be searched and viewed by the mass public. In addition to that, as we grow, we're serving more users across the globe, as I said, and we're actually working on an initiative to localize and globalize our Gemini.com site, as well as our suite of apps, including Exchange. And that localization is going to be key to onboarding more users in an accessible way and giving them that freedom to, understand our apps and onboard to our apps in a language that's, of their choice. In addition to that, I can also speak a little bit about just our growth internally. So as our teams are growing, we're offering more products, including like the Gemini credit card, Gemini Earn, which I'd encourage everybody to check out on our public site. As our teams grow, we need to be able to serve the content that those external teams really want to display on our public site. So that could mean copy changes, content changes, redesigns of the pages. And I think as we grow, our web projects need to be able to scale to meet that demand of constantly changing and updating and really thinking about what are making users convert and onboard to our Gemini platform. Finally, I think as we grow, there's front-end engineers that are onboarding to our team, and our code is constantly being shipped more and more as we onboard more engineers, and we do more engineering onboarding. So our developer experience for our web projects has to be equally as scalable to encompass more engineers and let them make sure that they're shipping code efficiently and not stepping on each other's toes.
Awesome. And I can already see the Q&A is getting busy there for us, Niall, at the end. So it sounds like we'll have a pretty full session. Thanks, folks, for chiming in on Q&A. We'll get to those questions at the end. Niall, I can tell a lot of things you've been working on, localization, right? Adding new products, new functionality to the site. How has adopting Jamstack workflows with Netlify increased throughput of your team?
Yeah, so the Jamstack workflow has really worked well for us. Obviously, Netlify, we've been able to capitalize on utilizing Next.js with the essential Next.js build plugin that you all offer. So we're really getting access to a lot of those Next.js benefits that I previously mentioned in terms of like hybrid statics and server-side rendering, which allow us to, as a front-end team, to really determine what makes the most sense for certain pages and not have to be, opt into only one or the other, right? So it really creates this flexibility for pages that need data, and we want to serve in the fastest way possible to utilize server-side rendering. But for other pages that might not need to be hydrated with as much data, we can use the static generation to really serve those pages, and that's really increased our performance and made it so that we don't have to think about performance all the time. We can kind of rely on the fact that we're serving pages and utilizing them on the Netlify CDN to serve it as fast as possible to our users. In addition to that, we have like one-click deploys with auto-publishing with Netlify. So that's made our deployment process so seamless, and has really made it so that we can do more deploys and ship more code faster than ever before. And finally, just to piggyback back on that contentful integration that we have, a lot of their internal teams that are not technical can make changes on contentful that automatically kick off builds on Netlify that allow them to change things on production whenever they want without any developer intervention. So that automation has been super, super key.
Awesome. Yeah. And these are, pretty typical things that we see with folks who adopt Netlify, automating deploys, right? And good to see also that you've been able to kind of bring other folks from the organization into the web stack through Contentful. So love the context there. So, another big part of what Jamstack is all about is reducing complexity. So I did want to ask you, Niall, how has adopting Netlify and the Jamstack really as a whole reduced complexity and some of the projects that you've been working on?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I actually have a recent example of something that we worked on. So we offer this product, Gemini Earn, that allows you to earn interest on your crypto balances that you have on Gemini. It's an interesting product that always has interest rates that are obviously changing. And so on our product pages, before, what we would have to do is whenever those interest rates would change, we would need our designers to update some of those image static assets that are on our page and update them with the new percentages, the APY percentages, and then hand that over to developers, and then have developers, push that to production. So it was kind of like a lengthy process, and it required a lot of manual effort as well, right? So we actually utilized a Netlify feature, Netlify custom build plugins, which allowed us to automate some of that. So what we're doing now is on every build, we actually are able to hook in to the Netlify build plugin APIs and contact our own APIs and hydrate the page with images using our own interest APIs, so that we have the latest and greatest APIs showing up on the pages. So we're doing some JavaScript magic, but we're also utilizing that Netlify plugin to really make it so that we don't always have to have designer intervention and developer intervention for those dynamically generated content.
Wow. Okay. So great to hear the kind of use about Netlify build plugins too, and we always love some JavaScript magic, and I'm sure that a few learnings in there can be applied to kind of the audience's projects as well. So super interesting to hear about kind of frictionless ways of doing new things and trying things out. So Niall, I did want to ask about how Netlify and Jamstack has changed internal processes at Gemini. So, what have you seen as far as streamlining development cycles and reducing time to market in some of the work that you've done?
Yeah, to talk a little bit about that, I would definitely mention deploy previews. So Netlify has enabled our team to have a really streamlined process of QAing when it comes to like visual QA and collaborating with our designers and getting their sign off as well as product manager sign off. The deploy previews that we get on every branch that developers deploy has really allowed us to kind of like test out like new pages, updates, and incremental updates, as well as like routing changes that we might want to do, utilizing kind of the routing and redirect rules that Netlify allows you to kind of tap into. So deploy previews has been like an essential process, and like that streamlines what we do on our team day to day. In addition to that, the contentful integration that I talked about, really empowering the rest of our colleagues at Gemini in different departments to make changes to our site. We're thinking of continuously improving that, really making more integrations that allow us to automate some of the way that they want to lay out content. So that's something that we're actually actively working on for the rest of this year to make that process even easier as well.
Very cool. Okay. And I know that your team, right, and you've seen this kind of tremendous growth with Gemini.com. Thanks for pointing out a few of the kind of early things that are coming up. What else gets you excited about upcoming initiatives, upcoming web projects at Gemini? What else is kind of top of mind for you looking ahead?
Yeah, I think what's exciting is really just tapping into some of those Netlify features when it comes to globalization and internationalization. Like I mentioned, that's something that's going to be on the forefront of our mind as a front end team over the next few months. And in terms of upcoming initiatives, we're really thinking about just capitalizing on that automation that we've been trying to do. Really give, empower our non-technical members and users of the site that want to make changes to the site to be able to do that, whether that's with images and static content or, like I said, dynamic layouts. So I'm really, really excited about, working on those like automation and developer tooling that will really make it so that, more internal members and colleagues can contribute to the Gemini.com site without any intervention from us.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, that did wrap up the planned questions we had, Niall, but I can see that already folks have really contributed a lot here in the Q&A. For our audience here, please feel free to kind of keep dropping questions in. We'll go in the order of upvoted things and kind of take it from there. So the first question I have here is from Mark. So Mark is asking, can you please give an overview of the pros and cons of using Netlify versus AWS Amplify and the rest of the AWS stack. That's a challenging one. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the rest of the AWS stack, Niall, but maybe we can talk more about kind of some of the pros and cons of using Netlify that you've seen. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't have an experience working with like AWS Amplify, so I can't make a direct comparison and give you kind of like a pros and cons between the both. But for Netlify, like I mentioned, some of the pros that we really have is utilizing those one-click and auto-publishing deploys. The integrations and accessibility for the webhooks really makes it so that we can make more powerful integrations, whether that's with our translation vendor that we're going to use soon, or like that contentful integration that I mentioned. Those things have really made it so that we can make deployments and publish things without having, again, too much developer intervention and manual deployment processes. So I would definitely say that that's a super uh, really awesome pro that we've been kind of like capitalizing on by using Netlify. In addition to that, the deploy previews are second to none. I've never used a platform that had something similar, and I think it's been like an essential part of our process here at Gemini to deploy and collaborate with um, our product teams and design teams and let them have a lot of say and stakeholding in terms of what gets released and when. And deploy previews has really made it so that they can see what happens live, and what the site might look like in a production environment. So those are two awesome pros that I would always mention. And if anybody mentioned Netlify, in terms of cons, we haven't really faced that many issues with Netlify, even in terms of like downtime or anything like that. The only thing that I would like to see is the incremental static regeneration that Next.js offers. That's something that Netlify took a stand on and offers a different approach, DPR, distributed persistent rendering, instead of the Next.js offering that you can get on Vercel. But I think that there's definitely workarounds and pros and cons to that approach as well.
Totally, yeah, and there's actually quite a lot of documentation around kind of Netlify's distributed persistent rendering. On-demand builders, of course, supports kind of that with our Next.js plugin as well. So understood there, and love the feedback, Niall. Really appreciate that. Next question we have here is from Henrik. How do you integrate server-side rendering into Netlify? Niall, do you have a take on that, since you've been doing kind of a mix of both, as you mentioned?
Yeah, so we actually utilize Next.js for the server-side rendering, and that's fully supported by Netlify with the essential Next.js plugin that they offer. So our site basically generates. We can opt in using get server-side props, a function that Next.js framework offers you to basically hydrate our pages with a subset of data that we want to fetch during build time. The essential build plugin, essentially what it does on Netlify is that it will run those functions beforehand and generate those pages, and create them as like static pages on the Netlify CDN to be served.
Very cool. Yeah, and that's pretty typical of what we see as well, right? With this kind of updated Next.js plugin, folks are able to use the get server-side props functionality and again kind of build really dynamic experiences. So that's super exciting. Thanks, Henrik, for a great question.
I will say a little bit more about that. There's also other frameworks that you can use like Gatsby, and Jekyll, and even Nuxt if you use like Vue, that will also allow you to bake kind of that server side rendering into your app and host that on Netlify as well.
Cool, thanks. Next one we have here is from Jonas. So we'll keep going down the list. How can I build a site on Netlify and still avoid vendor lock-in? Is maybe a good question here to think about with Niall. Is how do you think about vendor lock-in? I also have some thoughts on it too, if you don't have anything there.
Yeah, I'd love for you to go into it a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, cool. Basically, I hear you, Jonas. The question is, how do you avoid vendor lock-in? The most frequent thing I see is like folks want to avoid vendor lock-in because they want their tech stack to be future-proof. So I think by being technology agnostic, right? Netlify allows you to bring the framework of your choice, right? The static site generator of your choice, and really build and deploy that on kind of a platform that was built to build and deploy Jamstack applications. I'd say that's really where we're going. We want to empower folks to choose the technology of their choice. We're building out technology partnerships really so that you can add functionality and use the microservices you need. But of course, this is all just empowering a Git-based workflow. So, developers continue to work with the tools that they want to, and Netlify hopefully, empowers them and makes their development processes easier and faster.
Yeah, I will piggyback on that. Like I mentioned before, you can bring the framework of your choice and like the technology of your choice and use that on Netlify. I think they make it very open to and encompass several different like popular frameworks. And even allow you to just serve a static site if you want, like plain old index HTML and CSS and JS, and serve that from their CDNs. So I think there's a lot of flexibility, and I think Netlify does allow you to avoid that vendor lock-in. You can also take that same app that you're deploying, not use it on Netlify, and move to something else at a later time if you want to. But I think there's a lot of flexibility and openness when it comes to the technologies that you use and utilizing them on Netlify.
Awesome. Cool. So looks like we are coming up on time, just about a minute left. We'll try and squeeze just a couple more of these audience questions in. And thanks again to everyone for really deep, thorough questions. So looks like the next question here is, are there comparative numbers in terms of before and after leveraging Netlify? So maybe for the Gemini team, that looks like a pre-migration state and post-migration state. Do you have any metrics, anything carried over on that side, Niall?
We don't have any metrics, unfortunately. We went with Netlify first, but we did consider Vercel instead. I think that's a direct competitor when it comes to especially Next.js applications that are being deployed. And I think Netlify has just made it a much more easier and friendlier UI that we prefer. I think deploy previews was a deal breaker, so I think that's also another baked-in feature that you're going to want. And once you use, you're not going to want to leave or get rid of that feature. In terms of comparative numbers, we don't have any, but I will say that we've scaled amazingly over the course of like the last year using Netlify as we onboarded. Nelson, what was our request count and our traffic count?
Yeah. I was excited to see Gemini surpass the billion monthly web requests. So really, that's a high traffic site, right? And as we talk about Jamstack at scale, I'd say, that's really an awesome example. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like as crypto has become more talk of the town, I feel like we've been seeing more and more requests. So I can say wholeheartedly that we've like scaled very efficiently with Netlify, and we haven't seen any issues. So in terms of just as our traffic count and our visitors have increased, we really haven't really seen any issues with that.
Cool. Awesome. We are at time, so I'll say thanks to everyone who joined. Sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, but there is, of course, a contact Netlify form here on the site, and I think many of these questions are also answered by what's in our documentation and on our customer stories page. Thanks again, Niall, for kind of an awesome talk and awesome web project that you've worked on with us as far as Gemini.com. So good to be with you, and thanks again for everyone to everyone who joined.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Nella.
All right. Thank you, Nelson and Niall. Really appreciate that discussion. I think the questions were wonderful. Thank you for everybody watching for submitting excellent questions. And so that is it for our event. We will be sending out this recording soon, so keep an eye on your email for a link to the recording if you want to review or revisit any part of this. Also, make sure that you head up to the lounge, which you can find up here. That will be full of Netlify staffers if you've got additional questions, so you can jump in there to ask additional questions or just get more information. And make sure that if you are interested in any of the things that we dropped today, the new Enterprise Grid package, you can reach out to our sales team and we would love to talk to you. If you're already a customer and you're interested in upgrading, make sure you reach out to your account executive and they will be happy to give you more details about the plan. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. I'm really, really excited for the future of the Jamstack and for what I think you'll be able to build if you adopt this infrastructure. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time.